Hey, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Keith. I'm a holistic health coach, and most of what I share, most of my content is designed around reclaiming and optimizing the health of our bodies and freeing our minds. And with this video, I wanted to talk about, I was writing down earlier, I usually do some journaling every day, and I was thinking about mindfulness and the biggest things that I've learned that have helped me to improve my life, reduce anxiety, just have a better overall quality of life. And mindfulness is kind of a buzzword, and I think it's something that is black and white to some degree. A lot of people are either kind of against it just because it is sort of it can be a weird idea if you don't fully understand what it is. And then there's people that kind of get it and have delved in and accepted that it's useful. But essentially mindfulness is being aware of our own thoughts and being aware of our own state of being. And this idea of self-awareness is so important. Self-awareness, you could go into a whole idea around what it really is, but self-awareness essentially comes down to having a perspective of what we're actually experiencing other than just being in a straight line with no say in how it's happening or how it's playing out. For instance, seeing what we're thinking rather than just being absorbed in our thoughts, and whatever comes across our mind, we experience that as reality with no question, as opposed to that kind of being an observer and being able to look at our thoughts, and which we'll get into a little bit more here, but to question that and to be aware of who we are and how we're presenting ourselves in the world and what we're experiencing, and realizing that we have a lot of control. Might not be the best word. I don't really like the word control, but we have a lot of say in how our reality, how our lives play out. We co-create. So we do have a choice, and we don't have to just be washed around or pushed around. So with that being said, I wrote down 4 things that have been really helpful to me that I wanted to share. Mindfulness tricks, for lack of a better word, or not mindfulness concepts. So the first one, and these can all be formulated as questions, but the first one is, when we're facing a situation or anything's happening in our lives, asking ourselves, can I control what's happening? There's a lot of things that happen that we just can't control. We can't change it. Maybe can I change what's happening is a better way of framing the question. But there's a lot of things that happen. Maybe we fall and break our wrists, or we get into an accident, or we overcook our food for dinner, anything. And a lot of times what happens is we have a built-in response, or we just react to whatever it is. We get upset, we get disappointed, we fight in our heads like, what if I had done this differently? Or like, what if I could change this? We get all caught up and we waste valuable physical and mental energy fighting these things. But if we can learn to accept reality for what it is, learn to ask ourselves, can I change this? And if the answer is honestly no, just doing our best to work with it. And sort of a branch off of that idea, and this is more Stoic philosophy, but a branch off of that would be, what we can control is our attitude toward it. So maybe we can't control the fact that we fell and broke our wrists, and now we can't do a bunch of stuff that we want to do. But we can control our attitude, and instead of being down and disappointed and miserable, we can say, you know what? Maybe there's a lesson in this. Maybe there's something I can learn. Maybe I'll go through some experience that helps expand my horizons and broaden my perspective of life. And just go with it. Just learn to go with things, because what other choice do you have? When you fight what reality is, that's what creates stress and anxiety. Number 2 would be questioning our thoughts. And this is such a big one. I'm 29, almost 30. Probably for 26, maybe even 27 years of my life, it had never occurred to me as a conscious thought that maybe what I was thinking wasn't true. And the best way to look at this is, a lot of times the way that we illustrate reality, we're playing out a story in our head. So there might be something happening And whatever's happening just is. Whatever's happening is what it is. Again, we can go back to the same example. Let's say we break our wrist. We might go through a story of, now I won't be able to work out, I'm going to lose a bunch of weight, I'm going to get fat sitting around, and I'll probably get depressed because I'm not moving. And because I'm depressed, I'm going to start eating a bunch of junk food and not feel good. And we go through this whole spiral of thinking. Or we might even say, I broke my wrist because, my kid, or I don't have a kid, but like my kid or somebody left something out in front of, or where it shouldn't have been, in the middle of the floor, and I tripped over it, and we go through this whole spiral of resentment instead of just accepting what it is and questioning those thoughts before we get to the point where we're angry at somebody, we're predicting a miserable future, we're starting to get depressed over the thought of what may be. We just accept what it is and question our thoughts. Is it true? Is it true maybe that this person was being lazy and careless and they left something here? Is it true that just because this happened that I'm going to get depressed and I'm going to get fat or I'm going to be miserable around it? So just being able to intervene in those thoughts, and I'll kind of just interject that with all of these, I think the key to actually being able to use them is meditation, because that's what, in the moment of us actually being in the midst of something happening or being in the midst of our thought processes, gives us that entry point to stop for a second before we go from 0 to 100 and say, hold on, let me take a look at this. Let me actually look at what's going on instead of just being dominated by my thoughts or my mind. The third one, so number 2 though, the concept in a nutshell, questioning or asking ourselves, is what I'm thinking true 100%? Am I sure of that? And if I'm not, how can I reframe it, or how can I question what I'm thinking? The third one, another question, am I open to seeing how this could play out to be in my benefit? And this kind of fits with the first two to some degree. I guess they all fit together. But we oftentimes have something happen and right away we label it either good or bad. This is good, I can tell 100% this is going to benefit me, it's easy, it's comfortable. Or this happened, it's bad, I'm fearful of how it's going to play out, or it makes me uncomfortable, or this is challenging and I wasn't expecting that. So we like to label things as good or bad. There's another kind of mentality to it where we can just ask ourselves, am I willing to let go and just expect and trust that this is going to work out in my benefit? Am I willing to trust that the universe, the forces that govern everything, the Tao, whatever it is, God, that there's a plan, and that what is happening is of that will, and whatever is taking place in my life that may not feel great or may not feel comfortable, that it's a part of what I need to experience, and that ultimately it will benefit me. Even if it's not beneficial in making my life super comfortable, it's beneficial in being able to learn and grow if I'm open to it. So asking ourselves that question, am I willing to wait to label this thing as bad and allow for things to develop? And it happens all the time, right? We might, trying to think of a good example, we might pop our bike tire. This is one that I read in the book, but say you pop your bike tire and you're pissed off because now you got to walk your bike to the bike store, and this is a negative thing. You were excited to go on a bike ride, you didn't feel like going to the bike store, but when you go to the bike store and you're waiting for them to change your tire, you meet a person of interest to become a boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever, and you decide to go on a date, or you ask them out on a date, and it winds up being a beautiful thing, and that wouldn't have happened had you not popped your bike tire. So there's so many things that can happen if we're willing to allow time to continue and things to develop. The fourth one is asking ourselves, and this might be the most powerful, asking ourselves, whenever we're about to make a decision in our lives or take action, asking ourselves, is this moving me in the direction that I want to go? And the important caveat here is we have to try, it's not always easy, but do our best to create a working development of what we want our lives to look like. What would make us happy as human beings, as individuals? What outcome? What scenario? What would make us, or what seems like or would be worth building toward to live our lives? And then whenever we're going to make a decision or take action, asking ourselves, is this moving me closer to that or further away? And it's a simple thing. It's a very simple thing. And then breathing into whatever answer we have. And this is important. It sounds really simple, but let's say we're trying to get in better shape, or we're trying to get healthier. We know we need to be healthier. We know we need to eat better. But we start craving donuts, right? We get a solid craving for donuts. Instead of just acting upon that, if we have the awareness, we can intervene and say, is this moving me in the direction I want to go? The obvious answer would be no. If we let ourselves go too far, if it blows up, this craving blows up, that's when it becomes hard to break. Once we realize that we're about to do something that is not in line with where we want to be, not in line with who we deem ourselves to be at this point or who we're becoming, breathing into however we're feeling or whatever we're feeling, stopping, taking a deep or a couple deep belly breaths, what this does is it breaks up the thought pattern and the feeling. When we breathe in, it, especially like a nice deep belly breath, it causes our body to relax. It gives us space. It calms our mind a little bit. It's a focus, especially if we focus on breathing in, feeling the air go in. It distracts our mind just momentarily to break that obsession with whatever decision it is that we're about to make impulsively. So just doing that can have a huge impact. And if we continue to, at least let's say 80% of the time, answer, I'm about to do this thing. Is it moving me in the direction I want to go? Yes or no. If we follow the correct decision 80% of the time, we're gonna get there as long as we're consistent. But these things, essentially, what mindfulness tools do is they allow us space to interject into our own lives, to not just be dominated by our mind, which is largely constructed of the beliefs of the people we grew up around and the beliefs of society and the fears that we've developed and the anxieties that we've accumulated. And they allow us to, in that moment, stop and take a minute to question what we're doing, to rewrite how our lives are playing out, for lack of a better way to put it. And the more that we can do that, the more our lives start to change, the more we start to actually live the life that we want, instead of the life that just gets piled onto us by what other people want or what we think we should be doing, or just whatever winds up happening. So if we can utilize these things, it across the board will impact and enhance our physical, mental, and spiritual health and well-being. So thank you for watching. I appreciate your time. I hope that was useful for you. Try putting these things into practice. Again, if you don't meditate, I highly recommend that, just to create that space to be able to utilize these thoughts. Even just starting with a 2 or 3 minute, 5 minute, whatever meditation practice a day, you're gonna start opening that up inside yourself, and I guarantee life will change. It'll change in exactly the way that you need it. If you would like some guidance or assistance, or you feel like you're stuck, you don't know where to start with getting healthier, starting to optimize your life, starting to live the life that you want to live, becoming the person that you know you can be, I do offer coaching. To start out, we can do a free 30 to 45 minute strategy session. I'll put a link in the bio if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're watching on Instagram, it's in my bio. But you can sign up for that for free. We'll identify, really get clear on where you are and where you'd like to be, and identify what needs to happen for you to get there. I also have a free download called Hack Your Way to a Higher State. If you want to check that out, these are all primarily free. I think everything on there is free. Practices like natural biohacks that will help you to feel better, to be more clear mentally, and have more energy physically, so that you can start to live your life more fully. So thank you. Check those out. If you have any questions, feel free to post them down below or send me a message. And again, I appreciate your time.